everybody, it's Catherine from Jayne Catherine on Books, and here I am with the first news and reviews of 2020. So we're back to hashtag number 1 now, as we're in a new year, and I've got 3 books to bring you today and a little bit of bookish news. So let's go with news first. This is about a couple of releases. So just in case you missed them, the back end of 2019, Andrew Taylor has a new historical fiction out called The Second Midnight, and I'll put a picture up here for you to see. I don't own this book, but I thought I'd let you know. It came out on the 14th of November, but I haven't seen it much around on BookTube, so I thought I'd give that a bit of a mention if you're an Andrew Taylor fan and you like your historical fiction. And for all of you that are Stephen King fans, there's a new book coming out on the 9th, so it should be out as we speak, called Elevation. Picture up here. So for those of you that there's many people on BookTube that are doing reading all Stephen King's, there's a challenge, there's a brand new one just hot off the press. And another one going back to the end of 2019, if you love Bernard Cornwell, and I think a lot of you gentlemen subscribers out there, I think, like Bernard Cornwell. Sometimes it's historical fiction, but sometimes he does adventures on the high seas and that sort of type of adventure. But this is a new one that came out in October called The Sword of Kings. So if you are a collector and enjoy his books, then here's his latest one there. So there's a few for you to have a little look at if you haven't already heard about them. And without further ado, we'll get on to my reviews for 2020 number 1. So the first one I've got to show you here is, and there's a picture up here, is called Full Disclosure, and this is by Camryn Garrett. It's a YA contemporary, and I was drawn to ask for this on NetGalley because it is a very important little book that's come out, I feel, and this is very informative about HIV and AIDS. It is fictionalised. It's about Simone, who is a girl who is now 18. She's approaching her 18th birthday, but she comes from an African mother who already had AIDS, and of course that was passed on to Simone when she was born. So she's lived with AIDS all her life, and she's been adopted, well, HIV positive, shall I say. She wasn't actually suffering from the full-blown virus, and she's been adopted, and I'm sure it's in America, by two male doctors, and they are in a male-male relationship, and they've adopted Simone, and they've been great fathers to her. They've been very supportive and go to all her appointments, and she's fully aware of everything that surrounds, you know, being infected with the HIV virus and what that brings. However, we're now coming to an age, and I think this is important for all teenagers to read, because there's some updated information about safe sex and all about what it's like to, you know, live as much a normal life as possible when you have, you know, the HIV virus. And as she's approaching 18, she goes, I presume it's equivalent to like gynecologist type clinic, well, woman clinic, just to look at the sort of options and if there's any new information about her HIV status. And also, you know, she's getting to that age where she's wanting to have relationships and wanting to have safe relationships. And, it must be a difficult time going through teenage angst, coming of age, or everything that brings with that, without having the added burden of being very careful about relationships and the right people and safe sex, etc. So very informative book. I love the character of Simone. She's very well written. She's quite a sparky character. You know, she's very much, she's had this all her life, you know, she's come to terms with it. She's very accepting of it. She keeps herself very well educated on it, but obviously she doesn't want all the world and his father to know about it. And so she's trying to keep it very personal. She's moved schools because she was bullied in her other school for being HIV, got out and, you know, she was bullied. And she's come to this new school for a fresh start, but obviously somebody there is wanting to cause upset again and is threatening to tell people that she's HIV positive, and especially the boys. So there's lots of emotions going on in this book. I think it covered all the subjects very well. I think it put a spotlight on people's biases towards people that have HIV virus, and also bullying in, you know, in school. It'd be college, but you know, at 18 it's sort of college years. And I think it was a very good book. I feel that at times it felt a little bit childish in its writing, so I know it's for a YA audience. I personally felt that at times the plot, the storyline felt a little bit, the writing felt a little bit childish, but that was just me. Obviously I'm not the target audience, but I read quite a lot of YA fiction, and that was, you know, that was just a bit of something that I felt about it. But you know, there's a younger end of a YA audience, it would be, you know, fine. And the plot felt a little bit disjointed at times. So I gave it 4 stars. I think it's an excellent book. I think it's very important read. I think it's good for any age group to become more informed about HIV and what it's like to live with that your entire life. And yeah, it's out now. I'm sure it's out now. Let me have a look at its date on here when it's, if it's been, I'm sure it was 6th of January it was coming out. Oh no, I beg your pardon, it came out earlier, 29th of November. So you may well have seen it around, but yeah, shows how late I'm with my NetGalley. So there we are, full disclosure, Camryn Garrett. The next one is Justice Hall by Laurie R. King, and for those of you that aren't aware, this is a series of books featuring Mary Russell, and Mary Russell is the wife of Sherlock Holmes, and I know we've not got these in any other Sherlock Holmes stories, those that we know, but this is a whole series written as if Sherlock Holmes is sort of retired and met Mary Russell. They're very, very similar in temperament, very steady and methodical and scientific, and this is book 6. Now, they're not a fast read, they are quite slow, so you know, they do take some getting used to because they are slow and methodical. So we're gathering the evidence, there's a different crime every book, and we are gathering the evidence, and you know, it can be quite, I enjoy them, and I think this story itself, the crime itself in Justice Hall, has been my favourite. And the call to an old house where some friends of theirs from a previous book that they've worked in have been forced to come back to England and take over the running of this big hall, this big estate, because the occupant, you know, the last in line to it has passed away, and there's a bit of strange goings on. There's something behind the scenes about all this. In actual fact, their friend doesn't want to be the lord of the manor. He wants to go back to where he was, and is actually a spy in the Middle East. And he doesn't really want to be at home and going round with the shooting club and, you know, having ladies who lunch over and that sort of thing. So a really good story. I gave it 4 stars because I did enjoy the plot. Generally they're about 3.5 read for me, but the plot was really interesting in this. So if you know, you like historical fiction, you like Sherlock Holmes, but you want a little bit of a twist, slow paced, a good crime plot going on as well, then I recommend this Laurie R. King series for you. And then the last one I want to talk about today is The Next Step in the Dance, and this is by Tim Gautreaux. I think that's probably how you say it. It looks like Gautreaux if it's in French, but I think it's Gautreaux. And this has been on my shelves, it must be for 3 years. It's when Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings did her Mothbox subscription service, which sadly she doesn't do now, she's too busy, but I loved it. We had some fantastic books that came with it, but this one, I don't know, the cover didn't really entice me. It sat on my bookshelves, and as you know, this year I'm trying to do my hauls from my bookshelves instead of buying many books, and this is one that I thought, you know, I've had it 3 years, let's bite the bullet, because it's literary fiction, and I was a bit frightened that it'd be heavy going, and this shows that sometimes you're better off just biting the bullet and go with it, because I loved it. I loved this book. It was a 5-star read for me, and you know, it's quite a chunky book, nearly 400 pages, and there's so much happening in this. It's one that you perhaps need to read for yourself to get all the benefits of it and everything I mean about it. It's set in the Deep South, so in the on Tiger Island in the Bayou, and it's focused around a small community that live there and their way of life. And we've got 2 main characters, who's Paul and Colette, and they were brought up in the Bayou, and they've never left, and their family had never left. There's long family traditions there, and also there's a big fishing community, and there's a big engineering community in this area. Anyway, Paul and Colette are married. It's a mixed race marriage, so obviously we're touching on subjects such as that, and Colette really feels that there's more out there. There's more out there, more life to be lived, more things to learn and do if she leaves the area. And so in a way, she decides to leave Paul. I think they've still got feelings for each other, but in a way, she needs to do this, I think. She needs to move away to the big wide city and see a different way of life. So she does that for a while, but we've still got this pull between the two of them. And it's really looking at their marriage. It's like a close look at their marriage as well. So there's several things we're looking at: this small community in the Deep South, how they live. It becomes very poor because the engineering suddenly dries up, and that's something that Paul was involved in. Very much so. He's got a very good mechanical brain and used to be able to, you know, reconstitute anything, old engines, the lot, and it all dries up. Eventually they do have to come back to Tiger Island, and it's how they manage to survive, really. They've got to find new work, new ways of doing things. It's also looking at coping within a marriage when there's a health scare, health situations, and where the other partner within the marriage, you know, takes over different roles. So it's looking at that. It's looking at friendship. It's looking at family. Very supportive family. They're very supportive as a community. You know, it's not like the big wide cities where nobody knows anybody and nobody cares. You know, they know everybody. They know everybody's grandfather and everybody's sister and brother. And although that can be quite oppressive, I think, because that's why Colette wanted to leave, and it can be a bit much at times, then the good side of that is it's very supportive and everybody helps everybody out, and especially when they lose all the industry, you know, There's very little food to go around, there's very little money, and they all share what they have, which I think is wonderful. So I think it's one of those that you have to read for yourself. There's so much in it. You're going along thinking, right, we're just looking at their marriage and they've gone there and they've done this, and then something else happens. There's also some it highlights there's some unscrupulous practice. You know, obviously if engineering is shutting down, there are certain companies that are doing things that are not safe or you know, illegal, that sort of thing. So it's looking at what anybody would do when they if they think that they aren't going to have their livelihood. There's all sorts of things. It's a real good look at life, really. And it was interesting to look at life in a different setting, in a different country, obviously, me being in the UK. And, you know, we could say that there's small areas of the UK that are communities and can be very similar. But I think we've also got the Cajun background, the food, the smells, everything else that goes with the way of life there. Fishing and crab fishing on the bayou and, you know, everything like that. And it was absolutely wonderful. I can't rate it enough. It shocked me. It's been on my shelves for 3 years and I was scared to read it. It's very accessible, fantastically written. It's not a pretentious literary fiction because, you know, that's my argument with some literary fiction can be quite pretentious. And this isn't at all. It's just so well crafted, so much plot in here. Nicely written, so it's easy to follow and you get immersed in it, and I think everyone should give it a try. I've not really seen it out there on BookTube, and so therefore I want to give it a good shout out. So that is Next Step in the Dance. So there we go. There's 3 books that I want to bring you today for my first news and reviews of 2020, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.